After being reborn, I tore up my engagement with the regiment commander and married a rough man from the field kitchen team, all because in my previous life, I willingly gave up the chance to enlist in the army for Damien Liu, but he gave my spot to his dream girl, Celestine, while I stayed home and managed the household for him. He and Celestine were wrapped up in their sweet romance. He grew more and more impatient with me, sending letters repeatedly asking for a divorce. Later, Damien was injured and discharged from the military. I never left his side. I helped him recover and pull through his lowest days. But once he rebuilt his career, he still couldn't let go of Celestine. Even my son, whom I carried for 10 months and raised with all my heart, thought I wasn't good enough for his elegant, wealthy businessman father. He forced me to leave with nothing. This time, I'll help Damien chase his so-called true love. As for me, I'm going to build my own fortune and push my rugged husband to get into the military academy and become a commander. Chapter 1. Director. I've decided to give up the enlistment and stay on at the community textile factory as a worker. The community director looked at me in surprise. Girl from the Lee family. Are you sure? This is the last enlistment slot. It's even in the same unit as your fiancé. Wouldn't it be great to serve as a couple? My eyes drifted to the red slogans painted on the wall outside the window. One person joins the army. The whole family is honored. No regrets in defending the nation. Dedicate your youth to the Green Barracks. Once again, I was sure I had really come back to the recruitment season of autumn 1975. I smiled faintly and said with resolve, Director, women can hold up half the sky now. The textile industry is a vital pillar of our national economy. I'm still young, and I won't get lost in romantic distractions. I want to devote myself to the cause of socialist construction. In my last life, everything I did revolved around Damien, but in the end, I lost everything and died full of regret. This time, I'll never marry Damien again. The director was clearly moved by my firm declaration. He patted me on the shoulder with enthusiasm. Good for you. The baton of the times has been passed to your generation. With your spirit, I believe you'll become a model for working women. After thanking him, I left the community office. Walking through the alley, I saw people in blue work uniforms riding classic 28-inch bicycles. At that moment, the reality of being reborn hit me. I couldn't help but look up at the setting sun and laugh out loud. It felt so good. Everything can still change. This life, I'll live for myself and make it something brilliant. Chapter 2. As soon as I got home, the rich aroma of stewed chicken hit my nose and instantly jolted my soul awake. Following the memories of my past life, I looked up. Under the dim yellow light in the living room, I saw him again, Damien, 40 years younger, sitting on the sofa. Just as I remembered, young Damien had deep-set eyes, sharp features, and carried an aura of cold detachment. Even a casual glance from him could make my heart flutter and my cheeks flush. But a man like him had never loved me. He was the youngest regiment commander in the southern military region, with a limitless future ahead of him, and I was just an ordinary textile factory worker. If my grandfather hadn't saved Grandpa Lou when he was in trouble during his youth, there would have been no engagement between Damien and me. Seeing me lost in thought, Damien frowned slightly and handed me a piece of paper. Jenny, I got our marriage request back from the political officer. He hesitated, but before he could say more, his mother cut in sharply. You two should put the wedding on hold for now. Damien's career is just taking off. Young people shouldn't get tangled in love. They should dedicate their energy to strengthening our national defense and maintaining peace. My father frowned. You're not wrong, in-law. But our Jenny is preparing to enlist too. Wouldn't it be ideal if the two of them served together after marriage? He spoke with heartfelt concern on my behalf. The army's no place for comfort. If she goes, she'll only distract Damien. Are you trying to make Jenny the stumbling block in Damien's promising path? You can't possibly expect Damien to take care of Jenny for life just because the Liu family owes yours a favor. Can you? Mrs. Liu looked at me like I was garbage. The Liu family came from a long line of military officers. With their elite background, they had always looked down on me. They'd never been truly happy with the engagement. But because of that old life-saving debt, they couldn't openly break off the marriage, so they dragged it out until now. The marriage application Damien was holding was one he'd only submitted under pressure from Grandpa Lou. Meanwhile, on my side, my parents bent over backwards to please Damien. They catered to his preferences. placed his wishes above all, and acted overly cautious in everything, as if one wrong move might make him unhappy. Such a one-sided relationship? I'd rather be alone. Just as Damien narrowed his eyes and seemed ready to say more, I spoke first. I think Auntie Lou is right. Marriage is a big deal. It shouldn't be rushed. He hadn't expected that. His eyes widened in disbelief. His lips parted like he wanted to speak, but no words came. His brows furrowed involuntarily. Chapter 3. In my past life. Damien laid the retrieved marriage report in front of me. I cried my heart out, begging him. Only then did he reluctantly agree if I stayed home to do housework and serve his parents. He'd try convincing them to approve the marriage. I agreed, giving up my enlistment dream without hesitation, but he gave the last open enlistment spot to his beloved Celestine. After we got married, Damien's entire regiment was transferred to the south. He refused to let me follow, leaving me behind in the north. I didn't complain. I stayed home and handled everything with joy and care. But in Damien's eyes, my hard work and humility were vulgar. My warmth and generosity became crude and tacky. His heart was entirely taken by Celestine from the army's art troupe. He grew colder and more disgusted with me over time. He wrote again and again, asking for a divorce. Later, during a training exercise, Damien jumped on a landmine to save Celestine. His legs were destroyed, his future uncertain. Proud as he was, Damien refused to become a burden to the state. He gave up the chance to transfer into a desk job and was discharged. Celestine quickly turned around and accepted the courtship of the general's son. Damien, devastated, fell into a deep depression, but I didn't abandon him. I studied acupuncture on my own and stayed by his side, helping him recover. In the late 1980s, riding the wave of China's economic reforms, Damien went into business. He became wildly successful. I thought I had finally made it through the storm, until one day, while I was alone at the hospital taking care of his gravely ill mother, I bumped into Damien gently accompanying Celestine to her prenatal checkup. The tenderness in his eyes was something he had never shown me, not once. That was when I finally understood Damien had never stopped loving his first crush. He forgot the decades I spent enduring hardship for him. He forgot how I tended to his wounds without rest. To him, everything I did was just an unwanted burden. His heart was frozen solid, no matter what I gave. It was never enough to thaw it. Under Damien's daily neglect, I slowly became someone no one wanted around. A bitter, broken woman. Even the son I carried for 10 months and raised with my blood, sweat, and tears. Even he came to despise me, thinking I was nothing but a crude embarrassment unworthy of his elegant businessman father. Mom, you should really take a good look in the mirror. Do you really think you're good enough for Dad? Auntie Celestine and Dad are the real match made in heaven. It's because you guilt-tripped Dad with your family's old favor and clung to the title of Mrs. Lou for all these years that he and Auntie Celestine couldn't be together. When he got married, he didn't even invite me, his own mother. Instead, Celestine, the other woman, sat beside him on the stage, in the seat meant for his mother. That betrayal from my own son was the final straw. I had shielded him from storms, given him everything, but in the end, his selfishness and coldness sliced my heart into pieces like a sharp blade. I was full of hatred. I was unwilling to accept this fate. I had sacrificed my entire life for Damien, for nothing. This time, I'll stay far away from Damien, and I'll live for myself. Chapter 4. Damien didn't bother with courtesy and pulled me into my room, closing the door behind us. He tried to keep his cool as he explained. Jenny, my family just thinks we're still young. There's no need to rush into marriage. The military district has been busy lately. Once things calm down, I'll resubmit the marriage application. And honestly, I think it wouldn't look good if we served in the same unit after getting married. You should really reconsider enlisting. I gave him a calm smile. There's nothing to reconsider. Damien, I never planned to enlist just to be your comrade. My words clearly caught him off guard. He didn't believe I'd give up such a hard-earned opportunity so easily. So he scoffed. Jenny, since when did you start playing hard to get? I just think enlisting in the army is a serious matter. The military isn't the place for romance. He made it sound noble, but his actions said otherwise. In my past life, he used our engagement to pressure me into giving up my spot and handed it over to Celestine instead. And now, once again, Every reason he gave was just another excuse to keep me from joining the army. In the end, wasn't it just about making room for his goddess? I was about to tell Damien I wanted to break off the engagement, but a loud knock interrupted us. Mrs. Liu's voice came through the door. Damien, it's getting late. We should be going. Didn't you say you promised to help Celestine fix her radio today? Just like that, our serious conversation was cut short. Damien barely managed a "we'll talk later" before leaving without a backward glance. I watched his figure disappear down the path. I knew there was no way he'd be coming back tonight. My parents had killed the chicken we'd been saving for the new year just to host him properly. My father got up at dawn to sweep the yard spotless and even rinse the stone steps with clean water. My mother had been spinning like a top, wiping the square wooden table over and over, finally covering it with the precious floral cloth she usually couldn't bear to use. The windows were polished to a shine with old newspaper. Even the portrait of our nation's leader had been gently dusted. But despite all that, Damien didn't stay for dinner. As long as Celestine was around, he could forget about me entirely. Celestine was Damien's high school classmate. Beautiful, graceful, a singer and dancer. She was the goddess he idolized. Because of some leftover political issues from the past, she'd never been allowed to join the army. Recently, those issues had finally been resolved, but the last enlistment spot in our district had already been given to me. For Celestine, Damien would go through fire and water, climb mountains or cross seas, letting his unofficial fiancée give up her spot. That was nothing, in my last life, just to get her that enlistment spot. Damien even agreed to marry me, and that decision ruined my entire life. This time, I'll still give that spot to Celestine, because I want to sever all ties with Damien once and for all. Let's see if my self-sacrifice can really grant them a lifetime together. Chapter 5. In the end, I didn't say what I came to say, but it was fine. Damien's family leave would be over in 5 days. Celestine would soon join the military performing arts troupe as a cultural soldier. Their entire unit would soon be relocated to the south. Once that happened, the distance would be vast, and we'd have nothing more to do with each other. After dinner, I couldn't bear to stay home and see the worry on my parents' faces, so I wandered alone along the quiet riverside, trying to calm my heart after being reborn. Before I knew it, I had wandered close to Damien's military base. I couldn't help thinking about those days when my heart was entirely wrapped up in Damien. The base wasn't far from home, but Damien rarely came back, whether because he was truly devoted to serving the nation or just didn't want to see me. I didn't know. After he enlisted, he rarely visited home. Whenever he came on leave, I'd prepare for it days in advance. I'd wear my best clothes, carefully braid my hair into 2 long, shiny black plaits. My bag would be packed with sunflower seeds I roasted myself, and sweet pastries made with love. At the sight of him, someone I longed for day and night, I'd get nervous and excited, always ignoring the trace of disdain in his eyes. Now, looking back, all I felt was a hollow ache. Then, in the distance, I caught sight of Damien walking hand in hand with a woman. She had a graceful figure, a floral dress that hugged her curves just right, and long, sleek black hair cascading over her shoulders. They held hands tightly, smiling into each other's eyes, full of tenderness. It was Celestine, the very woman who came between my marriage and haunted my life in the past. My chance had come. I steadied my emotions and walked straight toward them, stopping right in front of Damien and Celestine. Damien, so this is where you ended up fixing that radio? His face went ghost white, and he jerked his hand away from Celestine's like he'd been electrocuted. He frowned. Jenny, I told you to wait for me at home. What are you doing here? Were you following me? I gave a sarcastic laugh. Do you own this road now? If I hadn't just happened to walk by, I really wouldn't have understood why you suddenly decided to withdraw our marriage application. Damien froze, his gaze avoiding mine. Jenny, you've got it wrong. Postponing the marriage was between us. It has nothing to do with Celestine. Celestine gently tugged on Damien's arm, putting on her usual pitiful act. Her voice was so soft, it was practically dripping honey. Damien, don't argue with Jenny because of me. I don't want to see you upset. I was so furious I laughed. Oh wow, what a performance. You didn't know he's engaged? Still playing innocent? Have you no shame? Celestine's eyes instantly filled with tears. She looked at Damien and whimpered. Damien, did she misunderstand? I only see you as a friend. She had pulled the same stunt in my last life. Always playing coy with Damien. Always stepping in at just the right time to sow discord between us. Damien quickly stepped in front of her, shielding her, and snapped at me. Jenny, show some respect when you talk. There's nothing going on between me and Celestine. I raised my voice deliberately. Nothing going on? You two were holding hands. Damien, do you think I'm a 3-year-old you can lie to? I'm your fiancé. Don't you think you owe me at least some decency for all these years? I had always been the obedient one in front of Damien. Seeing me suddenly stand up for myself stunned him into silence. A few women nearby, clearly eavesdropping, exchanged knowing looks and began whispering among themselves. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their animated expressions and pointed fingers said it all. By tomorrow, the entire neighborhood would be gossiping about us. Celestine probably realized being labeled a homewrecker in a military marriage could ruin her reputation. She leaned toward Damien and spoke softly. We've just been close since school. I've always relied on him. It's my fault. I made you misunderstand me and Damien. I gave a cold snort. Misunderstand? Anyone with eyes could see what's going on. If you two were open about it, maybe I'd even respect you for being in love. But this is like being a homewrecker and acting like a saint. Celestine burst into tears. Jenny, nothing happened between us. How can you say that about me? Of course she was the poor little angel in front of Damien. But in private, she'd whispered venom into my ears more times than I could count. You're nothing but a bumpkin with nothing going for you. Why would Damien marry someone like you? Clinging to him like that and trying to follow him into the military, have you no shame? You think he's marrying you out of love? Please, your family's old favor is the only reason. People like you don't matter when you die. It won't mean a thing. Back then, I was too weak to fight back. But not this time. Damien exploded with rage. Jenny, watch your mouth. I withdrew the marriage report because of serious things going on in the unit. I needed time to reconsider. Stop dragging Celestine into this. We're not as filthy as you think. You've gone too far. I want you to apologize to Celestine now. Celestine dabbed her tears, but I saw the smug satisfaction in her eyes. Just like my last life, whenever there was conflict between us, Damien would always take her side and force me to apologize. Even when I cried and told him she started it, he never believed me. He couldn't imagine that sweet, elegant Celestine was capable of saying such cruel things. And now she stepped in again, all gentle concern. Damien, it's my fault. Don't be mad at Jenny. I shoved past Damien and pointed at Celestine. Shut your mouth. Don't pretend to be the saint when you're really the devil. You're disgusting, wrecking someone's relationship and then acting like the victim. I had never defied Damien like this before. He was livid. Jenny, if you won't apologize, then get the hell out of my life. I'll never marry a shameless woman like you. I laughed coldly. Don't worry, Damien, you'll never have to see me again. He froze, panic flashing across his face. What do you mean? Chapter 6. It means just what it sounds like. This is what you wanted, right? We were just childhood betrothals arranged by our parents. There's no marriage certificate, so consider the engagement cancelled. I won't keep fooling myself. You don't owe me anything. You don't have to force yourself to marry me just to repay your grandfather's debt. Go be with Celestine. I'm stepping aside to let you two have your love story. From this moment on, we're no longer engaged. We're nothing. From now on, we go our separate ways. With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. In my past life, I had watched Damien's back as he walked away more times than I could count. This time, it was my turn to leave first. 2 nights later, half asleep in the dark, I heard a knock on my bedroom window. I already knew who it was, after all. This wasn't the first time. Not wanting to wake the neighbors and give them something to gossip about, I quietly opened the window. Damien climbed in through the sill like he owned the place. His eyes were like deep wells, locking onto mine. In them churned 1,000 unspoken words. That gaze again. In my past life, it was this same intense, longing look that kept pulling me back in, over and over. I pinched my thigh hard under the blanket, just to remind myself to stay alert. Coldly, I asked, "What are you doing here?" Damien grabbed my wrist and leaned in, voice low and tight. I heard from the community director that you gave up your enlistment? I nodded. My heart's not in it. I figured I shouldn't take up a spot someone else could use more. I thought he'd be happy. He'd been waiting for me to hand that spot over to Celestine. But instead, his face darkened. Jenny, what's that supposed to mean? First you quit the army, then you cancel our engagement. Are you playing some kind of game? I curled my lip into a mocking smile. Isn't this exactly what you wanted? Give Celestine the last enlistment slot. Give up the title of Mrs. Liu, and then you two can ride off into the sunset as the army's golden couple. He hadn't expected me to be so blunt. Awkwardly, he rubbed the tip of his nose. You're talking nonsense. I already promised Grandpa that once things settle down at the base, I'd marry you, before the unit relocates south. I was planning to get you pregnant. You'll always be Mrs. Liu, so stop pulling these stunts to get my attention. There's already gossip going around outside. Celestine's been really upset these past few days, and I don't want all this chatter to affect her. I gave a bitter smile and lowered my eyes to hide the sting welling up in them. Even now, even when everything was broken, my heart still throbbed at the edges. So that was why he came, not because he still cared about me in any way, but because he didn't want Celestine to get a bad reputation. Damien, I finally asked the question I had buried deep for so long. You don't love me, so why marry me at all? He flinched, his expression faltering for a second. Then he frowned impatiently. Love or not, it was a decision made long ago, an arrangement by our families. It's not something I got to choose. I was quiet for a moment before I spoke again, voice slow and steady. Damien, chasing after someone like you is exhausting. I don't want to keep doing it. All these years, I assumed we'd end up together, but clearly, that was just wishful thinking on my part. He didn't respond, lips pressed tightly together. I took a deep breath. You should go. Don't come looking for me again. Let's just live our own lives. The room fell into a heavy silence. Then I heard Damien give a short, scornful laugh. Fine, so be it. I just hope you don't regret what you said tonight. And with that, he climbed back out the way he came and slammed the window shut behind him. But his departure didn't stir anything in me. I switched off the lamp and lay back down to fall asleep. If not for that engagement, someone like me and someone like Damien, so high above the rest, we never would have crossed paths. I wouldn't fool myself into thinking he ever truly cared. Even if there had been desire between us, it was nothing more than a physical reaction. In my past life, I never had a place in his heart, not even once. And in this life, that hasn't changed. So long as I don't entangle myself with him again, we'll stay strangers from here on out. From now on, I'll put my second chance to good use and make money. The era of reform and opening up is just around the corner. This time, I won't waste my life chasing love. I'll fight for my own future. Chapter 7. After Damien's family leave ended, he returned to the base, and I began arriving at the textile factory before dawn every day, moving between the towering rows of looms, keeping a close eye on every detail of the machines. I didn't allow myself even a moment of sloppiness. I often used my breaks to ask veteran workers for advice and refine my technique. Neighbors and co-workers whispered behind my back, "Has that girl from the Lee family lost her mind? Gave up the chance to be a military officer's wife just to be a factory worker. Her poor parents must be furious. Even the best worker's just a senior technician. How's that more honorable than being the wife of a regiment commander?" But they hadn't been reborn. Of course they couldn't see what I could see. They didn't know that after 1984, China would begin cutting back on state-planned production quotas. By the mid to late 1980s, our country would become the world's leading textile power. The vitality of the non-state economy would be unleashed. Right now, the average consumer's fashion sense was still quite limited. Materials, styles, and colors were all pretty plain. But in the future, the textile industry wouldn't just meet basic clothing needs. It would have to meet demand for personalization, fashion, function, and so much more. I was going to spend a few years here, learning every skill I could. I planned to ride the wave of my country's booming development, and with the advantage of knowing the future, I believed I could succeed, start my own business, and chase my dreams. Chapter 8. That morning, on my way to work, I was walking along the moat when a sudden grunting sound shattered the stillness. I looked around and saw a massive black pig had just leapt off the back of a military pickup truck delivering supplies. It bolted, heading straight for me. Panicked, I turned and ran. The pig gave chase, relentless, and right behind it was a young soldier who had jumped down from the truck in pursuit. So now it was me running, a pig chasing me, and a soldier chasing the pig. Quite the scene. We raced along the riverside until my foot slipped, and with a loud splash, I fell into the river. The icy water soaked me to the bone. I thrashed, helpless, sadness rising in my chest. Had I really come back from the dead, just to die again at the hooves of a rampaging pig? Filthy water rushed into my nose, ears, and mouth. Tears stung my eyes, only to be washed away by the muddy current. Is this really how fate plays its hand? I flailed wildly in the water, but my hands only grabbed slippery weeds. Just then, the soldier chasing the pig saw me fall in. Without hesitation, he dove into the river. In just a few strokes, he reached me, strong arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me toward the shore. By the time I got out, I was a complete mess. My clothes clung to my body, revealing every curve of my chest. The young soldier quickly peeled off his own soaked uniform jacket, wrung it out, and handed it to me, signaling for me to cover myself. Scratching his head awkwardly, he turned away and stammered, "Sorry, comrade, that pig's got no manners. I didn't mean to scare you." But when I saw his face clearly, I froze. Something stirred inside me, a strange, complicated feeling. Over 40 years ago, in my last life, I had met him once. It was after Damien and I married. When he started to resent me more and more, he wrote home to demand a divorce. Desperate and heartbroken, I packed a small bag, took 3 connecting buses, and traveled for 3 grueling days to his base in the south. But Damien refused to see me. Instead, he sent someone to deliver a note. "This marriage just isn't working. We see the world too differently. It's better for both of us if we end it and find peace separately." I never even saw his face. Cold and starving, I collapsed by a rice field near the base. That's when the same young man, simple and honest, just happened to pass by. He gave me 2 steamed buns, then helped me find a local guest house that didn't require an introduction letter. Later, I found out his name was Lucas, a cook in Damien's unit. He was smart, hardworking, but poor. After finishing middle school, he joined the army, and now, in this life, we'd crossed paths again. How could this not be fate? A strange warmth bloomed in my chest, an inexplicable sense of connection. I bit my pale, shivering lip on purpose and said, "You really don't watch your pigs very well. You think today's little accident can be brushed off that easy?" Lucas scratched his head, clearly embarrassed. "It's my fault. I'll make sure this pig gets a proper scolding. I'm sorry you had to go through that." But, I looked at him pointedly. "You saw my body. What are you gonna do about that?" Lucas stiffened, his hands nervously twisting the hem of his shirt. His voice was barely a whisper. I didn't mean to. You can decide what to do. I'll do whatever you say." I huffed dramatically. "A girl's reputation matters. You know? If people start gossiping, calling me shameless, how am I supposed to live that down?" I bit my lip again, trying hard not to smile. Lucas blushed so hard he couldn't even look at me. "Don't listen to what other people say. I'll take responsibility. I promise." Chapter 9. After being reborn, I had planned to focus solely on building a career, leaving love completely out of the picture. But fate has its own way of creeping in when it's meant to be. You can't stop it. Our eyes met, and something subtle began to grow between us. After just a few brief encounters during his leave days, I made up my mind. I wanted to spend my life with Lucas. Resources were tight, but every time, he used his own food ration tickets to bring me full bowls of rice and several dishes. Whenever there was meat, he would unhesitatingly pile it into my bowl, leaving only vegetables for himself. "Jenny, eat more. You've gotten so thin." His eyes were full of warmth and care. That look, I had never once seen it in Damien's eyes. Lucas came from a poor background. His parents worked themselves to the bone just to keep food on the table. But with sheer perseverance and hard work, he always stood out in the Army's various selections and evaluations. During our most recent walk along the dirt road, Lucas seemed like he had something on his mind. "Jenny, Our unit is about to be relocated to the south. If that happens, it'll be hard for us to see each other again. So I was thinking, I froze, thinking he was about to end things between us. But then he exhaled deeply, and with sincere resolve, said, "Why don't we get married? You could come with me, no more long-distance separation." Relief and joy surged through me. I nodded fiercely. Lucas beamed. That same day, he returned to the base and submitted the marriage request. Of course, gossip couldn't be hidden for long. When I told my parents I was marrying Lucas the cook, the news hit our home and the neighborhood like a bomb. "Are you out of your mind? You gave up a regiment commander for a pig butcher?" My mother stared at me, face twisted in disbelief and rage. "Mom, Lucas is a soldier too. So what if Damien's a commander? He doesn't love me. And he's never respected you or Dad. Lucas might just be a cook right now, but I believe in his abilities and future. Most importantly, he treats me with real care. I feel at peace when I'm with him." Peace? What peace? He deals with blood and grease all day. He's either butchering pigs or cooking slop. What kind of future can that bring? How is that better than being married to a regiment commander? You're throwing your life away. Dad paced the room, furious, his pipe tapping rhythmically against the floorboards. Word spread fast. Soon, the whole block was buzzing. Old Madame Wang sat on her stool at the front door, picking vegetables while gossiping with the neighbors. Has that Lee girl lost her mind? All the girls in town would kill for a shot at marrying the commander, and she just canceled the engagement and ran off to marry a pig butcher? Exactly. Auntie Wu chimed in, shaking her head. Who knows what kind of spell that guy put on her? How's she gonna live now? Then came sister-in-law Wang, the one who never got along with our family, leaning in with a secretive whisper. "You don't know the half of it. That Jenny girl's reputation is ruined. Word is, that guy already saw her body. The commander won't take her back now. She's desperate to find someone, anyone, to marry." My parents were furious and stormed outside to argue with her, threatening to tear her mouth off if she dared speak like that again. Desperate to stop me, my parents locked me in my room. Mom stood guard outside the door, pleading, "Jenny, please, listen to your mother. Cut it off with that pig butcher. Let's go back and talk to the Liu family properly. It's not too late." Meanwhile, Damien had also heard about me calling off the engagement and planning to marry the cook. He was probably fuming with wounded pride. He took another family leave just to come to my house, bringing a military aide with him, just to mock me. Looking smug, he said, "So I heard you're marrying Lucas? Wow, I figured you called off our engagement to marry some general, never thought it'd be a kitchen hand instead. I'm a regiment commander. In what world is he better than me? You seriously fell for a guy who smells like pork fat?" He raised his voice intentionally, full of arrogance and scorn. "Truly impressive taste you've got. Gave up the title of commander's wife to spend your life smelling grease in a mess hall." I listened to Damien's sarcasm, face calm and unbothered. Lifting my chin, I looked him straight in the eye, voice sharp and unwavering. "Commander Liu, you've spent so long looking down on everyone. You think power and status are everything, but I don't bow to power. What Lucas gives me, you'll never understand. You're not even qualified to comment on it. Humph, you'll regret this someday." Damien turned on his heel and stormed off, fuming, but I knew him too well. He wasn't here because he cared, he just couldn't stand the bruising of his ego. Not long after Damien left, Lucas arrived. He had changed into his formal military uniform, carrying carefully chosen pastries and fresh pork from the market. Nervously, he knocked on our door, seeing my parents' frosty expressions. His throat tightened, but still, he stepped forward with courage. "Uncle, Auntie, I know you're worried about me and Jenny. It was wrong of me not to come earlier, but I sincerely want to marry Jenny. My rank may not be high, but my salary can support us. I'll give everything I have to her. I know I'm not a commander, but I have a genuine heart. I'll give her a steady, honest life. Please, give me a chance." His eyes held nothing but sincerity and conviction. And slowly, I saw the icy wall around my parents begin to melt. They didn't say anything, but I knew, in that silence, was their quiet approval. Chapter 10. Not long after, the military approved our marriage request. There was no grand wedding, No fancy dress, just a simple ceremony in the base's small auditorium. Our fellow soldiers had pasted big red double happiness characters on the walls using red paper. Lucas wore his neatly pressed uniform. I wore a modest red dress. We stood side by side in front of our comrades, exchanging looks filled with hope and determination for the life ahead. And just like that, we stepped into marriage. Through the tides of our time, we held on to love and belief in each other. Not long after the wedding, Lucas's unit was relocated to the south. I followed him to Nanjing, but unlike many other military wives, I didn't settle for a life of supporting my husband and raising children behind the scenes. I had my own dreams. In my past life, I had been to Nanjing a few times, but by then, it had already become a top-tier metropolis in China, well known even on the global stage. Yet now, over 40 years earlier, Nanjing was nothing more than a small fishing village. Lucas felt guilty for bringing me somewhere so undeveloped, but I didn't mind, because I knew what was coming. By the 1980s, this very place would become a pioneer of economic development. The future belonged here, and I already had a plan. Of course, I would return to my roots, the textile industry. Within the military housing compound, I quickly became known as the fierce wife, independent, ambitious, and unapologetically bold. Lucas and I talked often about the future, and just as I hoped, he wasn't content to stay in the mess hall forever. "Lucas," I said to him one night, "are you really planning to spend your whole life in the kitchen? You're capable of so much more. You should apply to the military academy, go chase something bigger." He looked embarrassed at first. "Jenny, I'm doing fine in the kitchen. It's not that easy to get into the academy." Of course it's not easy, but how will you know if you never try? People with ambition work to better themselves. Do you really want to spend your whole life smelling grease and smoke? With my constant encouragement, Lucas picked up his textbooks again and started studying hard. And sure enough, he made it into the military academy. While he was studying, I gave birth to our daughter. In an instant, the entire burden of our household and child fell on my shoulders. But this time, I had the kind of love that gives strength instead of draining it. I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel bitter. The 1980s were full of both opportunity and challenge. I didn't dare let myself fall behind. In our tiny one-bedroom apartment, I juggled caring for a baby with planning my own business in my head. All I had was one old sewing machine I had picked up at a second-hand market, but it was my treasure, the vessel of my dreams. By day, I carried our child on my back as I ran around looking for affordable fabric suppliers. By night, I sat down in front of that sewing machine and got to work, cutting, stitching, refining. I studied fashion magazines smuggled in from Hong Kong, analyzing the latest styles and trends, figuring out how to blend popular elements into my textile designs. Whenever I hit a technical snag, I sought out old master tailors and asked for help. In the beginning, the clothes I made were only sold to other military wives or at small street stalls. Sales weren't great, but I didn't give up. I kept improving my craft and focused on raising the quality of my products. Bit by bit, people started to notice. My clothes stood out with their fresh designs and careful stitching. Orders began rolling in. Eventually, I was able to rent a small workshop and hire a few workers. My little business was taking off. Meanwhile, Lucas graduated from the military academy with flying colors. Like a rocket, he shot up the ranks, armed with solid knowledge from school and a relentless work ethic. He quickly stood out in the army. Starting from the very bottom, he took charge in every mission, always the first to lead, always composed under pressure. Under his command, the troops were disciplined, well-trained, and achieved outstanding results in both training exercises and real missions. His promotions came one after another. Chapter 11. Years later, during a military community event, I unexpectedly ran into Celestine, once dazzling, now just another face in the crowd. She glanced at me but wouldn't even meet my gaze. She turned away and quickly disappeared. It was another military wife who quietly filled me in on what had happened all these years. Turns out, Damien had injured his leg in an accident a few years back. He received a disability pension from the army and was discharged. Returning to a civilian life, the organization arranged a clerical job for him. But Celestine? She decided he wasn't good enough for her anymore and divorced him. After the divorce, Celestine got involved with a middle-aged military official who had recently lost his wife. The two were quickly rumored to be heading toward marriage. For a while, she thought she had landed a powerful backer. She threw her weight around the performing arts troupe. Arrogant and overbearing, she offended just about everyone. Then, no one knows what happened, but the engagement was called off, and the officer married someone else. After that, Celestine became a complete outsider in the troupe. Never trusted again. As for Damien, who returned to civilian life with a desk job, he didn't last long. Due to gross negligence that caused significant financial losses to the state, he was dismissed. Damien had always been the golden boy, the top of every crowd. He'd never tasted failure before, but the blows kept coming, one after another. Eventually, he broke. He cut ties with all his former comrades and subordinates, disappearing from their lives. The military wife telling me the story let out a sigh. But me? I didn't feel a shred of sympathy. They brought it all on themselves. If anything, I felt it still wasn't enough, not nearly enough. Chapter 12. Time moved into the 21st century. After years of relentless work and determination, my textile factory grew bigger and bigger. Our products weren't just popular locally in Shenzhen, they were selling overseas. With the advantage of knowledge from my previous life, I had seized every opportunity in the market. Today, my assets had surpassed 1 billion yuan. I had become one of the most recognized names in China's textile industry. Lucas, now in his 60s, still stood tall and proud, his eyes firm and sharp. If anything, he aged like fine wine, richer, deeper, more dignified. His uniform, still immaculate, bore shining insignia that reflected his authority and accomplishments. But whenever he looked at me, all that power and military pride would melt into quiet gentleness. Years passed, but in our little world of marriage, we built a partnership rooted in deep understanding and unwavering support. Whether it was during stormy days or bright, sunny ones, we stood together. We shared every season, every chapter of life side by side, with Lucas by my side, our loving daughter, and now our cheerful granddaughter. I realized I hadn't thought of Damien in decades, until one day, Lucas and I were driving our granddaughter to the park. At the parking entrance, an old man with a limp hobbled out of the guard booth, shaking as he raised a QR code for us to scan and pay the fee. The moment our eyes met, both Damien and I froze. Lucas had long forgotten I had once been engaged to Damien in my youth, and he could never have imagined that the man standing before us, grimy, hunched, dressed worse than a beggar, was once Regiment Commander Liu. Full of ambition and pride, Lucas said nothing. He simply scanned the code as usual, and the barrier lifted. The car eased out of the parking lot. In the back seat, our granddaughter was giggling and chirping in her baby voice. My husband responded to her every word with patience and affection, using a playful voice to match hers. In the rearview mirror, I saw Damien still standing there. He didn't move, just kept staring in the direction our car had gone. Damien, this time, it's really goodbye. Forever.